Today we're going to do a good old Bible journal with me while we look at 1 Corinthians 13 and I show you a bajillion Bible journaling ideas. Let's begin. Someone suggested that I do a Bible journaling video on 1 Corinthians 13, and I loved the idea. If you don't know, that is the love chapter. Love is patient, love is kind. And it is just such a meaty passage of scripture. I figured we could do a short little Bible study on it, and I could share a few Bible journaling ideas for those of you who love more creative ideas and ways that you can Bible journal. This passage always makes me think of back in my high school years when I volunteered at a Christian summer camp. And one year, this was the theme, 1 Corinthians 13, love. I remember teaching my little team, we were like the red team. Like, love is patient, love is kind, does not envy, does not boast. And we had like all these little dance moves. Every week I would get a new batch of kids and teach them this passage. And I remember one week it hitting me as this little 5-year-old was doing her little dance moves. She doesn't really know what she's saying. This is such like a big concept. I don't even know what I'm saying, except for the cross. And like I've been married for 5 years and I still feel like I'm learning love every single day when I see it in new forms, like as a mom, or now that I'm a mom and I look at the ways that my mom loves me. You know, there's so many different ways that we see love. Our understanding of love grows and grows and grows, and it's highlighted or enhanced by a Christian faith. So before we get super deep, I do know a little bit on the book of 1 Corinthians and 2 Corinthians. So the context of the book of 1 Corinthians is that Corinth was like the Las Vegas of first century Palestine. Y'all know there weren't trains or airplanes or any kind of globalization in the first century. There were ships, and that's about it. And so ships would have to obviously sail around continents. Corinth was in a really small peninsula of land. In order to save ships the trip of going all the way around a peninsula of land, Corinth was on this really thin strip where there was like a trolley that was built. It would take like 2 days, 3 days, I can't remember exactly. Corinth is located next to this skinny 4-mile thin strip of land which they created a trolley through to shortcut and carry ships so ships didn't have to sail all the way around. But while the ship was docked and being trolleyed to the other side, sailors would visit Corinth. Corinth was kind of like the Las Vegas. Like people would come for like a day or two, party hardy, and then leave. And because of that, it was like the center of culture because so many cultures were meeting and gathering. There's a saying, and it was like what's on the back streets of Rome was on Main Street of Corinth. Like the sin and just like the pagan rituals, all of like the sad, dirty things were there very blatantly, very much kind of like Las Vegas culture. When people say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, it was that kind of thing. So Corinth was like party central. People would go there, it'd be their vacay while their ship is being trolleyed over that 4-mile stretch, and they'd jump back on their ship and carry on their trip. Paul is a great missionary, and he, as a Roman citizen, knows the importance of this port city. He knows the importance of how centralized this location is and how powerful a church would be if it was located here. And so Paul really pours into this church so that the gospel will go to the nations. Think about it. If someone goes to Corinth for their little Vegas weekend, ends up hearing the gospel, receiving the gospel, and responding to the gospel, then they go back home or they go to another city traveling on their ship or whatever, the gospel just can explode. That is the context of the Corinthian church. And this all leads up to chapter 13, the love chapter, where he exemplifies for these new Christians, these Christians struggling through what does a Christian walk look like? And he boils it down to a single word: love. Now, I want you to remember this is Paul talking about love. This is like Romans Paul, the Paul who exemplifies grace and faith, and those are his big words. Here for the Corinthian church, in the thick of culture, in the thick of sin, in the thick of the worldliness, he screams out to them, love. Now, chapter 13, these first couple of verses, is a hymn to love. And some suggest that it was composed before he actually compiled this letter. So that's something I think is really interesting and kind of enhances my understanding of the text and how it's so poetic. So I'm gonna write that down right here. So my first idea, I want to write hymn of love. That's 3 words. So I'm gonna write them stacked on top of each other, spaced out. So first off, you're gonna draw 3 boxes, and then we're just gonna make them look like a little banner. Isn't that a cute little banner? I think it's cute. You guys may be like, no. And then I just scribbled down in messy handwriting that this may have already been previously written. Now, one of the things you'll notice in the book of Corinthians is they're constantly worried about spiritual gifts and the use of tongues. And so he actually uses it here in this verse. If I speak in the tongues of men and of angels. So he's already pulling from something that they're already preoccupied with to reach their heart. So we're going to want to note that as well. I just pulled out my scrapbook paper, and I think I'm going to use this sheet because it's pink and reminds me of love. So I am going to rip this out, add this paper on the edge of the Bible sheet. But let's get a little creative and let's cut out a heart. You could draw it out beforehand if you want to, but I'm going to be risque and just eyeball it. Look at that, so imperfect. You guys might be like, wow, Faith, that's really rough. And I'm just gonna write on the front what we just talked about. Paul is addressing such big sin issues, and yet he focuses here on love. Okay, not perfect, but it's something. Back to what we were originally gonna write. Come on, Faith. We were originally gonna know the speak of tongues thing, because that refers to their culture and their interest. Draw a little arrow. This will be taped in like here. Let's work off this idea of a Valentine. I'm gonna draw an actual Valentine where I can put my notes, and then behind it can be the little envelope. Paul here uses the topic of tongues, which they already expressed interest in. And so then he goes into this like hyperbolic imagery of a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. So those things make quick noise and then they don't really have any further effects past that. But love has like eternal effects. And so he's talking about like I could have prophetic powers, I could know everything, but if I don't have love, I am nothing. And then it turns from this first person to this third person. This portion is like the climactic important part that you've probably heard 1,000 times. You can read this as these are characteristics of Jesus and or these are characteristics that should describe us now that we're under the Spirit's guidance. And here's one of my latest favorite lazy girl methods when it comes to Bible journaling. Are you ready for this? Bada bing, bada boom. Since I already wrote it down in pen, I can just color it in with some crayon really lightly. And then I come back through, and since there's those natural rough edges, I highlight it by tracing those rough edges. And it just kind of looks like a paint stroke. One thing that I really want to do, which I'm kind of shy to do in front of you guys, but I'm going to do it anyway. I really want to respond to this. I'm immediately getting convicted. I'm going to draw another arrow. And I want to work off this Valentine's idea. So I am going to draw a little stamp. Super easy to do. So, you know, totally not perfect, but it carries on that idea of Valentine's, postcards, whatever. So I just messily wrote, Lord, where can I grow in my love? Where have I failed you and exemplifying you here? So we want to not miss this ending. Love never ends. Paul doesn't make this statement about love never ending because it sounds good or because it would make a good Valentine's Day card one day. Love never ends, as in the love that we live out as Christians will only propel the gospel. The love exemplified on the cross to us is something that we continually share. Brings back this idea that we continue on or show the love shown to us. I should also note that love is a really like hot topic word. People like to throw it around. Well, we know in the Bible there's different words for love that's used, like agape, but in our culture, we say, oh, I love watermelon lemonade. And then we also say, I love you, honey, at the altar when we're getting married. And those should really be two different words. So open up your prayer journal and pray about, Lord, how can I have a love that's different? A love that's defined by the cross, a love from you versus just liking or having an intense desire for something. Our love should lead us to action. Our love should be a response to Christ's action, Christ's love for us. Now, if you guys want to focus on this a little bit more, maybe even while you're prayer journaling on this topic, watch this video. I kind of divulge into that a little bit more. And I would also encourage you guys, if you're wanting to grow in your prayer journaling, check out this video right here. It will kind of help you in your prayer journal life. I pray that this has been a profitable Bible study for you and that's given you a bajillion Bible journaling ideas and inspiration. It's not been perfect by any means. I'm gonna go ahead, washi tape this into my Bible, and I will see you guys in these videos. Bye, friends.